Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at Warnings from Weimar, Why Bargaining with Authoritarians Fails by Daniel Ziblatt. We're going to explore a really critical moment when a democracy chose to dismantle itself, one fateful decision at a time.
Just listen to that. We must preserve our soul, but a rejection will result in unpleasant consequences. That was the actual justification offered by Ludwig Kaas, the leader of Germany's Democratic Center Party, right before he and his colleagues cast the votes that effectively ended German democracy. It's a truly chilling quote that perfectly captures the dangerous logic of abdication. And what is that logic? It's this belief that cooperating with an autocrat is a survival strategy. That it's worth opening the door to long-term authoritarian rule just to avoid some immediate punishment. And that's what this article reminds us. Democracy doesn't usually end with one big dramatic event. More often, it's through a series of compromises, missteps, and misplaced confidence that slowly open the door to authoritarianism.
In Weimar Germany, those small cracks just kept adding up, and we all know who walked right through them. Today, we'll explore the 3 catastrophic miscalculations made by mainstream leaders that paved the way for disaster. If you enjoy history lessons that double as subtle warnings, stick around and subscribe.
So you gotta ask, how did Germany even get to that breaking point? The failure of its first democracy wasn't inevitable, not at all. But the Weimar Republic was born into a really turbulent world. It was full of promise, for sure, but also under immense pressure from the very start.
It actually began with so much promise back in 1919, establishing this progressive constitution with all these new liberties. By 1924, it seemed like it had weathered the early storms and was entering a period of relative stability, even cultural flourishing. But then the floor just fell out. In 1929, the Great Depression hits Germany and hits it hard, causing crippling unemployment. By 1932, the whole political system was in total gridlock. Parliament was paralyzed, and that created this huge power vacuum that, radical parties were all too eager to fill.
But here's the thing, Ziblatt argues. Plenty of other democracies survived these exact same shocks. What ultimately doomed the Weimar Republic wasn't just the crisis itself. Nope, it was the series of absolutely fatal choices made by its leaders in response to that crisis.
Okay, let's dive into this. The first critical error was made by mainstream conservatives. And look, they didn't support the Nazis, but they thought they could use them for their own political gain.
Take Alfred Hugenberg. He was this powerful media mogul. Let's just say charisma wasn't his strong suit. Seeing the growing energy of Hitler's movement, he decided, hey, I'll partner with these guys on a national campaign, hoping their fervor would kind of rub off on his own conservative cause. In doing so, he accidentally gave a fringe extremist party exactly what it needed most: mainstream respectability.
By the time Hugenberg realized his mistake, it was just far, far too late. Hitler had totally used the platform to steal the spotlight, legitimize his movement on a national stage, and present himself as a serious political force.
All right, let's move on to the next miscalculation, and this one was even more direct, even more disastrous. It was this arrogant belief that an extremist could somehow be controlled once you hand them the keys to power.
So by 1933, the government is just paralyzed. Desperate to form a stable majority, a group of conservatives led by this guy, Franz von Papen, came up with what they thought was a brilliant plan: make Hitler chancellor, but, and here's the key, surround him with their own ministers to act as his handlers. They would be the true power behind the throne. Or so they thought.
And this quote, it just perfectly illustrates their catastrophic misjudgment. This wasn't just a political calculation. It was a gamble born of pure hubris. They genuinely believed they could tame the tiger they were about to let out of its cage.
Of course, Hitler had no intention of being a puppet. He just needed a spark, and he got one with the Reichstag fire, which he immediately used as a pretext for a state of emergency. Step 2, the Reichstag Fire Decree, an order that effectively erased all civil liberties, like overnight. And once those protections were gone, he moved right to Step 3, arresting and detaining his political opponents indefinitely. The puppet masters, they had lost control in a matter of days.
And that leads us to the final, fatal error, the one that formally, officially ended the Republic. It's this belief that you can bargain away democratic protections and somehow still save democracy itself.
Hitler now wanted something called the Enabling Act, which would basically give him the power to rule by decree, dictatorial power. But to get it, he needed a 2/3 majority in parliament, and the last obstacle in his way was Ludwig Kaas's Center Party. They faced a choice: resist and face the consequences, or cooperate for the sake of self-preservation.
Fearing those
unpleasant consequences we talked about, Kaas and his party, they capitulated. They justified their vote as a necessary evil to save their party, but in doing so, they cast the decisive votes that gave Hitler total legal control. The democracy was officially over. Just like that.
So here's the really crucial point in all of this. This was not a popular seizure of power. It wasn't some revolution that was supported by the majority of the German people. Not even close.
In the last free and fair election of the Weimar Republic, the Nazi Party won just over 30% of the vote. 30%. They never ever commanded a majority of public support. Their path to power, it was paid for them by others.
And that, right there, is the enduring lesson of Weimar. Extremism rarely triumphs on its own. It succeeds because mainstream leaders, motivated by short-term ambition or just plain fear, make a series of what seem like small, pragmatic concessions, until, one day, there's nothing left to concede.
And on that note, a little nod to our producer, FireflyHaku, who keeps this show from collapsing the way Weimar did, at least so far. I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to share and return for more.